I got a call saying they found my grandson running in the streets of Milwaukee. He's autistic. Maybe he got out the house or something, but that wasn't the case. And from there, something in my spirit just told me to call the morgue. I was getting no answer from her.
And that's unusual?
Yes, very. We always had this thing, if I go before her and she go before me, that she would be birds. Any kind of bird, birds, just birds everywhere.
In the early hours of November 5, 2025, a 7-year-old boy, barefoot and nonverbal, was discovered wandering alone at 4 a.m. in Milwaukee. At first, authorities were simply trying to locate his family, but the story quickly grew darker. By the time they uncovered the truth, they realized this child had witnessed not just one, but 2 murders. What began as an ordinary morning in Milwaukee would become the last moment of peace for Anaya Raymond, a devoted mother of 3. She had been staying in the upstairs unit of a tenant named Terrence Wilder, who for weeks had been clashing with his landlord, Kevin Griffin, to fix their drainage pipe. That morning, Kevin confronted Terrence in his apartment. The dispute escalated into violence. Terrence was shot in his bedroom. Anaya, who was present, witnessed the killing. Moments later, Kevin would turn on her. When officers finally pieced together the events, the scene was nothing short of horrifying. Anaya's body was found shot 8 times in front of her young son, in an alley near 41st and Hampton, miles from where her son had been discovered wandering alone. Investigators described the case as one of the most disturbing landlord-tenant disputes they had ever encountered, a tragedy that exposed the devastating consequences of unresolved conflict and retaliation. But before we get to that bone-chilling moment that changed everything, let me take you back to where it all began.
I saw the body, and of course, I took off running to call the police.
Anaya Raymond, born in 1991, was 35 years old. She was a devoted mother of 3 children, including the 7-year-old autistic, nonverbal boy who would witness her final moments. Her mother, Misty Raymond, lived in Texas, but maintained a close, loving bond with Anaya. Misty described her daughter as outgoing, fun-loving, and the kind of person who lit up every room she entered. Family and friends adored her. She was deeply loved and relied upon by everyone around her. Those who knew Anaya said she had a magnetic personality. She was the type of woman who made friends easily and carried a natural warmth that drew people in. Despite the pressures of motherhood and life's challenges, she remained the emotional anchor for many in her circle. Anaya's life was not without challenges. She worked tirelessly to care for her children, juggling the demands of raising an autistic child with the realities of everyday life. Friends said Anaya often put her children's needs above her own, sometimes sacrificing her own comfort to ensure they had stability. Her resilience became a defining trait. She was known to push forward even when circumstances seemed overwhelming, determined to create a safe and nurturing environment for her children. At the time of her death, she was living in a house near 12th and Capitol in Milwaukee, not her own, but staying as a guest with a man named Terrence Wilder. But staying with Terrence was meant to be temporary. It was a stopgap while she worked toward securing a better home for her family. She often spoke of her hopes to move into a place where her children could thrive, a home that reflected the stability she was striving to build. 39-year-old Terrence's family described him as a loving father, devoted to his children, and a man who didn't deserve the violent fate that awaited him. Neighbors recalled Terrence as quiet, respectful, and hard-working. He was known to keep to himself, focusing on his children and trying to maintain a peaceful home despite the ongoing issues with his landlord. The unresolved maintenance problems had created a hostile environment long before the violence erupted. Terrence Wilder was living in the upstairs unit of a property owned by 54-year-old Kevin Griffin. Terrence had previously reported issues with the apartment, no hot water for 2 months, and other maintenance problems. His complaints led to tension with Kevin, who retaliated instead of addressing the issues. The strained relationship between tenant and landlord had become a daily burden, casting a shadow over what should have been a safe space for Terrence and his family. Anaya's life in that household was intertwined with Terrence's. She was present in the upstairs unit on the morning of November 4, 2025, when tensions boiled over into unthinkable violence. Her presence there was not just as a guest, but as a friend and supporter, someone who understood the weight Terrence carried and shared in his struggle for dignity and stability. Sadly, both adults won't live long to fulfill their dreams or ambitions. The tragedy began on November 4th, a day that would irreversibly change lives. Prosecutors report that Kevin confronted Terrence Wilder over a minor issue, a back door left open. Griffin, in his own words, just lost it. He went upstairs to Terrence's bedroom, where he shot him in the head while he lay in bed. Terrence Wilder, a devoted father and family man, was dead instantly.
Anaya Raymond was in the same room. She had witnessed Griffin murder Terrence, and in that moment, she became a threat to him. Griffin, fearing imprisonment if Anaya went to the police, made a horrifying decision. He forced Anaya and her young son into his Mercedes and drove them around Milwaukee. During the drive, Anaya attempted to defend herself and her son. Prosecutors say she pulled out a knife and mace from her purse. But Kevin was faster and colder. He shot Anaya in the car, with her 7-year-old son watching everything unfold. Her body was not treated with any shred of dignity. Kevin drove to an alley near 41st and Hampton, dumped Anaya's body behind bushes, and left her there for 7 days, exposed to the elements. Meanwhile, he placed the child in Anaya's car, drove him to another location several miles away, and told him to wait for his mother, knowing she was already dead. But hours later, the boy would be found. He was discovered wandering alone by police. When investigators traced the events back, they found Terrence Wilder's body lying in his bed upstairs in Kevin's unit. Both murders occurred on the same day, in the same house, and at the hands of the same man. Kevin admitted to shooting Terrence, claiming he lost it over a minor dispute, and confessed to murdering Anaya after she attempted to protect herself and her child. Kevin's actions left a trail of devastation: 2 lives taken, a child traumatized beyond comprehension, and families left to grieve unimaginable loss. After Anaya Raymond's body was discovered in the alley near 41st and Hampton, Milwaukee police began piecing together the events of November 4th. The discovery of her 7-year-old son wandering alone the previous morning was the first clue that something was gravely wrong. But officers initially had no identification for the boy. He was barefoot, nonverbal, and unable to communicate the horrors he had just witnessed. Police canvassed the neighborhood, going door to door in hopes of finding someone who recognized him, while simultaneously trying to trace Anaya's whereabouts. Meanwhile, across town, investigators were tracking the property at 12th and Capitol. Within days, police connected Anaya Raymond and the boy. Surveillance footage, witness statements, and the landlord's own admissions began to reveal a horrifying pattern. Investigators learned Kevin had previously had a contentious relationship with Terrence. Complaints about no hot water, leaking faucets, and other property violations had been reported to city inspectors. Kevin's response, evicting Terrence and moving in unlisted tenants, added to the tension. City records confirmed the living conditions: no hot water for months, broken fixtures, and a hostile environment. For Terrence and Anaya, what should have been a normal living situation turned into a nightmare. Once police brought Kevin in for questioning, the investigation accelerated.
Milwaukee police have now linked a little boy found wandering the streets to a woman found.
The 2 scenes more than 3 miles apart. 12 News' Hannah Hilliard is live at 41st and Hampton. Hannah, this is a tragic twist.
Absolutely, Ray and Blake. You may remember yesterday, Milwaukee police put out an alert asking the public for help in identifying a little boy found wandering alone. Well, today they say that little boy is related to a woman found in these bushes here near 41st and Hampton. 4 a.m. Wednesday on 9th Street near Concordia. Milwaukee police say they found this unidentified little boy roaming alone, no shoes, no socks. Police say he was nonverbal, unable to tell them who he was or what happened. Officers in the neighborhood
The police knock on your door already?
spotted going door to door in hopes of locating his parents. The situation near 9th and Concordia now connected to one 3.5 miles away near 41st and Hampton.
I looked and I saw the body, and of course, I took off running.
Rosetta Lampkin Johnson and her neighbor discovering a 31-year-old woman in their alley near these bushes. Police say she had been. Did you recognize this woman at all?
Not at all.
At any point did you hear shots?
No shot at all. To my recognition and stuff like that, she must have been, somewhere else and brought here.
Police tell 12 News the little boy is related to the victim. The medical examiner identifying her as Anaya Raymond. What happened, though, remains a mystery.
I have sorrow for anyone, especially young, as I think she was 31 or something like that, very young and stuff like that. You don't want to see that or see anything happen to someone like that. And my heart goes out to the family.
Hannah, police say the little boy is now reunited with family members.
Yeah, but as for the woman found here near 41st and Hampton, police say they do not have anyone in custody. In fact, they do not know who they're looking for right now.
Hannah Hilliard live for us in Milwaukee. Thank you, Hannah.
Kevin initially tried to frame Anaya as being in the wrong place at the wrong time, claiming he did not intend to hurt her. But under pressure, he admitted to shooting Terrence Wilder during a dispute over the back door. He also admitted to killing Anaya after she attempted to defend herself and her son. Kevin Griffin was charged with 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, 1 for Terrence Wilder, 1 for Anaya Raymond. Also, felon in possession of a firearm, as Griffin had prior convictions and was legally prohibited from owning a gun. His bond was set at $500,000, and he was remanded to jail pending trial.
Prosecutors charge a Milwaukee landlord accused of 2 people that are living above him.
Investigators say the stem from an argument in the upper unit at 12th and Capitol.
Investigative reporter James Stratton is live at the jail. James, family of one of the victims says he was killed over complaints that he made about his apartment.
And Ray and Blake, family telling us that he had been without water, the victim in this case, for up to 2 months, and that he took those complaints to the city. Records show that he did as well. But it was an argument, prosecutors say, between the tenant and the landlord that reached a boiling point and led to 2.
A single flower and a bottle of liquor perched on the porch of the home of Kevin Griffin, the memorial for Griffin's tenant, Terrence Wilder, and Anaya Raymond, who prosecutors say Griffin. Behind the now boarded-up door, records show police found the body of Terrence Wilder with 1 shot lying in his bed in the upstairs unit.
This has been my nightmare, my hell.
His family shocked Monday.
You stole something that wasn't yours to steal. Yeah, you didn't deserve that.
Prosecutors say Wilder and Griffin were arguing about leaving the back door open when Griffin says he shot him because he, quote, just lost it. Prosecutors say Anaya Raymond, who also lived there, witnessed the murder. They say he put her and her nonverbal son in his Mercedes and drove them around. Eventually, he told prosecutors she pulled a knife and mace, and he shot her in front of her son. They say he dumped her body in this alley near 41st and Hampton, and prosecutors say he told them she, quote, was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I won't be able to see my daughter grow old. I wasn't supposed to bury her. She was supposed to bury me.
Prosecutors say he then took Raymond's son back to his house, put him in her car, drove him to another location, and, quote, told the child to wait there for his mother to come get him. Police found the boy hours later. Records show Griffin was in the process of evicting Wilder, alleging he moved others in not on the lease or paying rent. Wilder complained to the city, saying he didn't have hot water for 2 months.
He was upset because Terrence called the city on him.
Do you think this was retaliation for that?
Yes, I do.
City records show inspectors ordered Griffin to fix leaking faucets, fix a drain and a porch door, which none appear to have been fixed at the time the landlord is charged with taking the lives of 2 people living above him.
James Griffin is being held on a $500,000 bond.
going through intake court yesterday, Rhea. Prosecutors say that they charged him previously with 14 different felonies over the years. In this case specifically, on top of the homicides, he's also charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm.
All right, James Stratton live for us this evening. Thanks so much, James.
The murders sent a wave of grief and outrage through Milwaukee and beyond. Terrence Wilder's family expressed their devastation. One aunt said Terrence is not a violent person. He didn't deserve to be taken in such a violent manner. His relatives mourned the senselessness of his death, a devoted father, beloved by friends and family, gone over a dispute about a door. Anaya's mother, Misty Raymond, flew in from Texas immediately. Grieving and traumatized, she had to manage her grandson, who had witnessed the murders. Misty described her bond with Anaya, saying they had a spiritual connection, often communicating through subtle signs like birds. Now all she had left were memories and the child's survival. Community members expressed outrage over the preventable nature of the crime. Public officials and neighborhood leaders called for stricter enforcement of housing codes and tenant protections to prevent similar tragedies. Anaya's 7-year-old son, autistic and nonverbal, was directly exposed to extreme trauma. Witnessing his mother's murder and the killing of Terrence Wilder created psychological and emotional challenges that would likely last a lifetime. The child was safe with family, but safe did not mean unaffected. Experts would later stress that he would require ongoing therapy and support to process the events he had endured. This case starkly illustrates the ripple effect of violence, not just the lives lost, but the long-term emotional scars inflicted on those who survive. The murders underscore how small disputes can escalate when combined with unresolved anger, access to firearms, and systemic failures. Kevin's actions were fueled by retaliation over minor complaints, yet the consequences were catastrophic. Both victims were ordinary people with families, dreams, and responsibilities, a tenant and a guest, a mother and a father, whose lives were destroyed in a moment of uncontrolled rage. City records, witness accounts, and family testimonies suggest that intervention might have prevented the deaths. Yet Kevin's choice to escalate, combined with a lack of immediate oversight or warning signs, meant that no intervention occurred in time. For the families of Terrence Wilder and Anaya Raymond, the days following the murders became a battle to navigate grief while seeking justice. Terrence's relatives shared stories of his generosity and devotion to his children. They described him as a man who loved deeply, laughed often, and had no enemies. The sudden, violent loss left a void in their lives that nothing could fill. The tragedy of Anaya Raymond revealed how fragile life becomes when housing disputes spiral into deadly violence. Across the United States, similar tragedies have unfolded, each carrying echoes of Raymond's story. One such case is that of Natasha Latrice Sutton, a tenant in Wilson, North Carolina, whose confrontation with her landlord ended in bloodshed and community grief. On September 15, 2025, Wilson police responded to reports of gunfire on Washington Street. Inside the home, they discovered a scene of horror. 44-year-old Natasha Latrice Sutton and her son, 21-year-old Avante Pender, had been fatally shot. Two others, 46-year-old Tyrone Sutton and 37-year-old Tiffany Fogg, were critically injured. The shooter was identified as 39-year-old Donta Maurice Chestnut, a landlord who had been living in the property and clashing with Natasha over unpaid rent. Investigators revealed that Natasha was 4 months behind on rent, and tensions between her and Donta had been simmering for weeks. What began as a financial dispute escalated into a violent confrontation. Chestnut, armed and enraged, opened fire inside the home, killing Natasha and Avante instantly. The attack left the community reeling, not only because of the brutality of the act, but also because Chestnut was previously regarded as a youth mentor and community figure. Donta was arrested later that day and charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. His arrest stunned Wilson, as residents struggled to reconcile the image of a man once seen as a role model with the reality of the violence he had committed. For many, the case highlighted the fragile balance between financial stress and personal conflict. Housing insecurity, already a pressing issue in communities across the country, became the backdrop for a tragedy that claimed lives and shattered families. Anaya Raymond's death in Milwaukee was tied to a landlord retaliating against a tenant who complained about poor living conditions. Natasha's case in North Carolina was rooted in a rent dispute that spiraled into violence. In both, the victims were not only individuals, but symbols of broader systemic issues: housing instability, financial stress, and the vulnerability of families caught in disputes with landlords or tenants. These tragedies underscore the urgent need for conflict resolution mechanisms, housing support systems, and community intervention programs. When disputes over rent, maintenance, or living conditions are left unresolved, they can fester into resentment and, in extreme cases, violence. Misty Raymond, Anaya's mother, became the central figure in caring for her traumatized grandson. She coordinated therapy, medical care, and emotional support, while also organizing memorial and funeral services. Misty's dedication highlighted a parent's unyielding strength in the face of unimaginable tragedy. She worked to ensure her daughter's story was not reduced to a statistic or a news headline. Community members rallied around the families. Vigils and memorials were held near the locations of the murders, as well as at churches and community centers. A single flower or candle became a symbol of remembrance for both victims, demonstrating that even in grief, collective compassion can provide some solace. Anaya's 7-year-old son, having witnessed both murders, was at the center of the family's care. Experts noted that children exposed to extreme trauma, especially violent deaths of close family members, face long-term psychological challenges. Therapy focused on helping him process grief, rebuild a sense of safety, and develop coping mechanisms for his autistic needs. The family's advocacy extended beyond personal recovery. Misty Raymond began speaking publicly about domestic safety, the vulnerabilities of children in traumatic events, and the importance of early intervention in disputes that could escalate to violence. This case drew attention to broader systemic issues. Kevin's actions were precipitated by complaints about living conditions. Proper enforcement of housing codes and tenant protections might have prevented escalation. Kevin was a convicted felon, illegally possessing a firearm. Stricter enforcement of firearm restrictions for convicted felons could have reduced the risk. Anaya's presence in the home at the time of the murder underscores the vulnerability of individuals caught in violent disputes they did not start. Public awareness campaigns emphasized that even seemingly minor conflicts could escalate dangerously. Public leaders, advocates, and lawmakers used the case to highlight gaps in tenant rights, dispute resolution, and protections for witnesses to violent crimes. Terrence Wilder and Anaya Raymond were more than victims. They were people with families, dreams, and community ties. Terrence's family described him as devoted, loving, and engaged in his children's lives. Anaya's friends remembered her as fun-loving, outgoing, and endlessly caring for those around her. Anaya's work and spirit left an enduring legacy. Her son survived, and her family continues to advocate for justice and systemic awareness. Terrence Wilder's life and dedication to his family served as a reminder of the human cost of unchecked anger and impulsive violence. The murders of Terrence Wilder and Anaya Raymond serve as a cautionary tale about the consequences of unresolved conflicts, the importance of reporting and resolving housing and safety issues, the impact of violent acts on children and families, and the necessity of systemic protections to prevent similar tragedies.
For the public, the case reinforced that vigilance, intervention, and awareness can save lives. For Anaya's son, it became a lifelong journey of healing, guided by family, community, and mental health professionals. The memories of Terrence Wilder and Anaya Raymond live on through family advocacy, community remembrance, and public awareness campaigns. Their stories underscore that violence does more than end lives. It alters futures, traumatizes survivors, and leaves a permanent mark on communities. Awareness, vigilance, and systemic reform remain the only paths to preventing similar tragedies. Rest in peace, Anaya Raymond. Rest in peace, Terrence Wilder.
What do you think about this case? Let me know what you think in the comments section. Also, click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.